Bravo, Ben. Thank you. Beautiful. Let's welcome our jazz musician, Benjamin Rosenblum. Guess what? Ben is my neighbor. Oh my God! We live in a co-op in Upper West Side, New York, and you'll never know who you run into, right, Ben?
That is very true. I mean, I was so happy to meet you as well. Hear about all the things you've been doing.
Thank you. Yeah, our community have so many talented people, filmmakers, musicians, actors, actresses, and writers and novelists. You name it. And so, yeah, I'm very honored to meet you, Ben. So now, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for playing for us. Let me tell our audience about a little bit about this series. I've been doing this conversation with someone special for today is the 35th episode for the last 16 weeks, including talking to Yangan. Yangans are the people who support Andrew Yan. So it's been really wonderful. And so let me introduce Benjamin Rosenblum to you. He's a jazz musician, jazz pianist, and composer. And also he's an accordion player. Amazing. And so Ben has been described as mature beyond his years. By the way, he's only 27 years old. And he also was described as an impressive talent from All About Jazz and many great reviews. He internationally traveled to many countries, including Japan, Canada, and Europe, and also been performed in East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, and Smoke in New York City, many other venues. So he's very accomplished, the young musician. Another sort of a milestone for lots of parents is Ben is a graduate of Juilliard / Columbia dual music program. That's like a huge big deal, for a lot of parents. They want to, probably pick your brain out about how you did that, because as far as I know, it's very difficult to, first of all, to be accepted and then to finish, because I know a lot of people could not finish that program. It's just too rigorous and too time consuming and too not organized. I heard a lot of stories about that. So I want to talk about that later. So today we're going to talk about music, I guess, a lot of music, and we're going to hear Ben play the piano and also accordion. So Ben, tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Where you were born, and are your parents musicians?
So, I was born and raised in New York City, which actually for jazz musicians in New York City is a little bit rare. I think New York City is such a destination for jazz music. So people from all over the country and really all over the world move to New York either permanently or for a certain amount of time to study and learn. So to be a native New Yorker and stay here in the jazz community is a little bit unusual, actually, which is pretty funny. But my parents are not musicians; they are lawyers. But they're both very supportive of the music I do. Really, if it weren't for my mom, I really wouldn't have found jazz, which is my main love. She's the one who first encouraged me to play piano when I was young. I mean, my dad had a piano and he played a little bit as well. And, when we had the piano at home, I started messing around on it when I was young. And, I think convincingly enough that my mom decided that I should have piano lessons. But really, the pivotal moment in my upbringing was when my mom, came to me and said, I think that you should really learn about jazz. I always loved just sitting down at the piano and improvising. Before I knew that it was called improvisation, I started as a classically trained musician, and I really enjoyed the classical music. I played on piano, but I think I didn't have the same kind of connection to it that I later discovered with jazz. So, because of the way I felt time and the way that I would sit down and improvise, my mom, who is a lifelong jazz fan and somebody whose sister is actually a jazz singer, my aunt, so she grew up around the jazz community as well. She decided that it would be something that I would be interested in. And once I started learning about jazz, it really just opened up my world completely, and also really gave me a path towards pursuing music in a really personal way as a performer, as a composer, in so many different ways.
Beautiful. Now, you also play accordion. Can you tell us a little bit about, did you start piano first and then later you played accordion, or you simultaneously do both? How does that happen?
I definitely started with piano first. I always joke with people that since I started piano around age 5, it's really, don't really remember a time before I played piano. It's always kind of been part of my identity and who I am. But the accordion has been a journey really of the last 8 years. So I vividly remember still picking up the accordion for the first time and not really knowing what it did, or, it's definitely been more of a adult kind of pursuit. But the great thing about the accordion is that, I started learning it after I already had a foundation in music, so that allowed me to learn it more quickly. And then as I learned it, all of these opportunities opened up, because there are probably thousands of incredible pianists living in New York City. There are some amazing accordionists as well, but a lot fewer. So, and especially to be an accordionist who has a jazz background, is able to improvise and read chord charts pretty convincingly. I ended up getting thrust into all sorts of opportunities as an accordionist before I really was technically at a level that I thought I needed to be at. And it just forced me to continue, diving into the accordion more. And with that, I got to start learning about all of these different kinds of world music. There's a beautiful tradition on the accordion in South America, especially Brazilian music. Also in Eastern Europe, I've taken, my primary teacher when I started accordion was Brazilian, but I've taken lessons with Romanian accordionists, with Irish accordionists. I've learned a lot about klezmer music with some people who know more about klezmer music than I do. So there's been a lot of avenues of exploring music through the accordion, where the accordion is a more native instrument to those styles than the piano is. So it's been a really fun journey.
Yeah, I would imagine accordion. First of all, you can carry accordion everywhere you go. You cannot carry a piano, especially Steinway, or a big piano with you. Yes. And so the mobility is there, and also it is a very different timbre from piano, right? So it creates a different sound, and also, like you mentioned, you can reach different audience by playing Argentina music, or if you will, or other world music. So it's open, so totally different. Can I tell you a story of accordion?
Yes,
my experience. So I grew up in Shanghai, China. When I was, I think, either second or third grade. I don't remember for 100% sure. My elementary school had one opening to study accordion in a club, like a children's club, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, just one opening. So the school teacher sent me to study. Yeah, like
That's
a
amazing.
free study. So
I
it's
didn't
like a
know this.
club. You go to the club, like twice a week. You study, and it's because the reason they picked me, it was because my mother was a pianist. I actually
Mm.
grew up with a pianist, professional pianist. So 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 they picked me. So I was very diligently carry a really heavy accordion. I mean, I was only second, third grade. Can you imagine? It was a summer. It was so hot. So but I practiced really hard in a practice room. In school. I cannot bring that accordion back to my home. It's a school accordion. Anyway, so after a few weeks, I was asked not to continue anymore. Yeah. So this gets a little bit political. Okay. I know we're not supposed to talk about political, but it's my background. It's okay. So I was asked to not to go to study anymore, but we did not know why. So, but maybe a short time later, we found out somebody wrote a anonymous letter to the school, said they should not let me study accordion because my father was that was during Cultural Revolution. I don't know if you are familiar with that period. My father was sentenced as people's enemy, so he was
Wow.
against Cultural Revolution. So I was the daughter of a counter-revolutionary, and I'm not supposed to have this privilege to study accordion.
Oh, that's horrible.
I know, that's terrible. Yeah. So, but later on, I studied violin on my own. So anyway, that's a story. Interesting. So I know
Wow.
I know a little bit about accordion. I can probably play, a chord or two. But anyway, would you like to play for us a little bit on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Since we've been talking about the accordion,
Yeah.
maybe I'll start with something on the accordion.
Okay. Okay. Oh, could you tell us how many keys do you have? Like a piano has what, 88 keys?
88 keys. I should know this off the top of my head. I think it's 38, but it's 1, 2, 3 octaves and a few more keys. So
Oh, okay.
38, 39 keys. I know on the button side is 120 buttons.
Oh my goodness. Oh
So
my goodness.
that's something I can tell you off the top of my head. There are different size accordions.
Right. Some are bigger, right? Some are small.
Yeah, I'd say there are as small as 8-button accordions, but probably the first like professional level accordion would probably be 70 buttons, and then there's 120, and then there are actually ones that are bigger than this that have another extra row of buttons.
Wow.
Because we have some bass notes and some have a third row of bass notes underneath.
Yeah.
And then we have different kinds of chords, and some have an extra row of chords. So.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna to exit from here. I'll leave you.
All right. Well, I'm gonna play the first tune I played to start things off was an original composition on the piano. That was called Because It's Raining. But I'm gonna play a Brazilian piece and hopefully do it justice. This is one of my favorite ones to play. It's called Receita de Samba, which is the recipe for samba.
Bravo!
Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Now, now that you're on, so can you tell us just a little bit more about the similarities between accordion and piano, and also the very different thing about these two instruments?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, there are different kinds of accordions. This one is a piano accordion. So in that sense, it has the same layout on the right-hand side as the piano. Right? Just like the piano. So, you know, when I was first learning it, that was something that allowed me to pick it up quickly and be able to play melodies. You know, it's a little bit different because you're sideways versus front, but you know, the layout is similar enough. The keys are a little bit smaller, but the similarities kind of end there. Now, the main difference is that the sound is created by moving the bellows. So when you play the keys, it doesn't make any sound, but by moving the bellows, you create the sound. And that can be a little bit of a trip for me because I'm always used to if you, with more force on the key, you get more dynamic range. But for the accordion, no matter how you hit the key, it's all about how you move the bellows. On the left-hand side, you know, there are predetermined buttons that play different chords. So you can play one button and get a 3-note triad, which makes certain things easier. Like that's that kind of stereotypical accordion sound, but it's because it's so much easier than on the piano.
Yeah.
You know, going back and forth on those notes. In terms of as a performer, I see the greatest difference is that the piano is more of a percussive instrument and the accordion's more of a vocal instrument. So on the accordion, you can do a lot of things like crescendoing or through a note. You can get vibrato. You know, you can even bend the notes. So, you know, you have a lot of leeway that way. But in terms of getting percussive, the note is always going to be coming from complete silence. You have to kind of fake it with the movement to get a strong attack. Whereas on the piano, it's complete opposite. The note's going to be the loudest that it is right at the beginning of playing it. So, you know, you have all of these ways of you know, getting this kind of percussive rhythmic thing, you know, that you can't really get on the accordion in the same way. And that means that for me, I have a full range of expression between these two instruments. I have the more vocal and I have the more percussive, you know, maybe the more melody kind of centric and the more harmony centric, you know. Not that you can't do one or the other with either instrument, but in terms of having both at my disposal, especially on a recording setting where I can arrange the other instruments to fill in the spaces that I'm not filling in, you know, it gives me a lot of flexibility in that.
It's almost like you have a bowl. You can like stretch out your musical line with accordion, right?
Right?
Yeah, it's like that, you know, but piano is more vertical, right? It's difficult to play horizontal lines with one note, you know. Yes. So yeah, it's a very different timbre. So yeah, so for someone came from not a musical family, your parents are not musicians, so are you just naturally disciplined when you study music? Did your mom help you?
I don't know how incriminating I want to be towards myself in public, but I'll say that I really started practicing seriously when I started jazz around 13 or 14 years old. I had played before that, and I I say I practiced enough to be able to play at recitals at a passable level,
Yeah.
but in terms of having a more strict practice regimen and really working on things to improve, I also went to a very kind of academically oriented high school, and
Where did you go? May I?
I went to Trinity for high school.
Trinity.
So yeah, on the Upper West Side, and before that
Trinity.
at
Is
St.
it
Bernard's.
related to Columbia?
It's not related to Columbia necessarily, but yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But so it's I have many interests. I always spent a lot of time on my academic work as well. So I actually took a year off before going to college, like a gap year.
Mm.
And during my gap year, I caught up with some of my practicing. I had never had a really intense practice regimen, but that year I probably practiced 5 or 6 hours a day and
Wow.
really, really focused on a lot of things that needed improvement.
Wow.
Actually, as much as times in the quarantine have been, very hard for musicians, this is probably the most I've been practicing since that year. Because once you start school and once you start a
Yeah.
professional career, you have all
Yeah.
sorts of other obligations to deal
Yeah.
with. But to have time that's completely wide open where you can just work on these long-term projects that have been kind of on the back shelf, it's
Yeah.
really a luxury.
Tell us a little bit about your Juilliard Columbia experience.
Yeah. So,
I'm gonna turn my light on a little bit, okay? I'm just gonna leave here.
okay, no worries.
It's getting really dark outside.
It sure
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Okay. All
What
right.
I'll say is, I did the Columbia Juilliard Exchange 4 years. So basically, well, I did actually only my third and fourth year I was in the program. I applied into it after I already was at Columbia.
Oh.
So it's kind of a different thing. I had to go through the admissions process all over again
I see.
when I was already in college, which was quite an experience.
Oh, I see.
But I spent 2 years doing the program, and I didn't choose to do the 5-year program, which I could have applied into, which would have been a master's. But basically, in my couple years taking the program, I got to study with some Juilliard professors. I did an ensemble and I had a studio class with the other pianists. And so I felt like I really got the best of both worlds, in terms of being able to kind of do the classes that were the most fun and the most engagement with other students and with professors. I was really lucky to be able to study with some incredible musicians, both Frank Kimbrough, who teaches at Juilliard, and Bruce Barth, who teaches at Columbia. They're both incredible pianists and also very different approaches. And, so that was wonderful. It was definitely very hard work, not only because I had the schedule of both schools, but I was also already starting to teach multiple students every week while I was in college. So
Oh,
it
great.
was it was definitely probably the busiest that I've ever been in my life. But that being said, I felt like I got to explore the fields that I really was most interested in. At Columbia, I majored in philosophy, and that was a really wonderful experience being able to read some of the great works of philosophy, especially a lot of the classics, ancient philosophy. And I think that at Juilliard, I got to after a certain point, dictate the kinds of things that I worked on with my teacher. I got to transcribe a lot of incredible pianists. I got to explore a lot of repertoire from the early years of jazz that I really didn't know about before I entered the program, and got to play some original music as well by my contemporaries. And certainly a lot of the people, the other students that I met at Juilliard are people that I still collaborate with, and really, really wonderful musicians.
Great. Speaking of jazz piano, could you please play for us a little bit?
Absolutely.
More.
I would love to. So like to play a piece that I thought that some audience members might recognize. This is an arrangement I did of a composition by Leonard Bernstein from West Side Story, and it's called Somewhere.
Bravo. Bravo.
Thank you.
My audio is a little funny. Yes, so beautiful, beautiful. I have a question for you. How do you describe your jazz style?
Huh. You know, it's an interesting question. It's hard for me to describe from the inside out, but I'll say that the things I really focus on as a musician are trying to tell a kind of story, some kind of narrative with the composition. I think especially as an improvising musician, you know, you have to make things reflect the way you're feeling and the things that you're thinking about, and you know, all of these kinds of abstract ideas in the moment, so that the piece is sincere and feels it's not only unique every time, but it's a unique reflection of where your mentality is at that moment, as expressed in this relationship between you and the composer. You know, so in that sense, I think a lot about being able to tell a compelling story with the music that I play. And, you know, at the same time, I have a whole kind of toolbox worth of different skills that I've learned over the years. And I've been fortunate to get to learn from a lot of really incredible musicians playing alongside them. So in that sense, I can always draw on that to bring a certain energy or a certain kind of groove to the music
Mm-hmm.
that I think will be evocative of that storytelling at that moment.
Beautiful, beautiful. I listened to. Can you hear me? Yes,
Yes.
my audio is a little funny. I'm going to. I lost my Yeti audio, so I'm talking with you from my computer. Hold on, I just put on my AirPods on. So let's see.
All right.
Okay, yeah, this the connection is not too great.
I think I lost your audio now.
Hello,
Hello. Yes.
are we good?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So um, I listen to your music, and there's like incredible depth in many of your delivery. Um, it's not, people sometimes think jazz is just entertainment and cheerful and uh, happy. Some of your music is just you just have to listen for a long time, and it's very profound actually. And at your such a young age, I just wonder how when you write something, when you play something, can you just tell us a little bit about your compositional kind of process and your delivery?
Absolutely. I appreciate those kind words. I think that, you know, with something like jazz, uh, the magic of the music is in the ways that you're able to take a certain thing and transform it in the moment, whether that's playing solo or with other people. You know, I think that in the early days of jazz, there was a lot more of a connection in the audience's mind between the songs that they were playing and people's popular understanding of music. You know, the what we think of as the jazz standards, the Great American Songbook, were really tunes that were from movies and musical theater and all sorts of popular mediums in jazz, that then when jazz musicians took those songs that were recognizable to the audience and improvised on them, it was like they could transform it. They could take a song that had a certain meaning and then take it in any direction that they wanted. And that was kind of the magic of the transformation. which is one reason why I like to try to play some material that, audiences might recognize. So, you can hear a little bit of my interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in terms of my compositional process, it varies significantly composition to composition, but things I often think about are setting up a certain kind of feeling to be the foundation, whether that's a stable groove, whether that's kind of a more textural thing, whether that's a certain chord tonality, something that establishes a foundation. And I also think a lot about melodies. I think about taking ideas, melodic ideas, and developing them in many different ways. That's something I've taken as inspiration from so many great composers,
Yeah.
But so then once I have that foundation and I set the tone, I try to find little ways to surprise the audience and, keep things fresh and surprising for myself as well.
Right.
So I try to leave the compositions open enough for them to go in different directions. And, the band members I play with, I'm lucky that I've been able to play with certain band members long enough that if I just completely go away from the form of the song, they have enough trust in me that they'll follow me. And then we can, make something that's unique to that moment.
Right. I became more and more fascinated with jazz music. I'm a classical trained violist. When I taught music appreciation in St. Joseph's College for 16 years. For the last, I would say, 7 or 8 years, I inserted jazz history as one of the curriculum. So I learned, I have to say I learned surface of jazz because I'm not really a jazz musician, but at least I learned history of jazz. So now from one of the thing about jazz, I guess two things at least. One is jazz uses a lot of syncopation rhythm, right, compared to classical. And also jazz, the one major thing about jazz is improvisation. Lots of classical musicians do not know how to improvise, which is a pity. I can fool around, improvise a little bit, But tell us a little bit improvisation, like how do you teach someone to improvise? How do you describe what is improvisation?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the kind of paradox about improvisation is that everyone improvises every day, right? We're improvising right now by having a conversation that we didn't plan out, right?
Right.
So in that sense, some of the best, maybe the best improvisers in the world are, children and 2-year-olds, and the kind of imagination that takes hold of being able to transform the world around them into this magical place full of creativity and wonder in every place. And as you get to be an adult, the world kind of puts shackles on that, right? That kind of ability to see wonder in things. We get a little more cynical and more kind of initiated into following societal rules, which are, of course, important. But when you get to play music and improvise, in a certain sense, it's a process, especially when I work with musicians that have already had some classical training or, some technical facility. Because, of course, this is like a language. You have to be able to speak the language before you can feel free in expressing yourself. So you have to have a certain amount of technical understanding and a little bit of music theory understanding to understand why certain notes have certain relationships to the chords. But then once you start building up that understanding, it becomes a matter of breaking down people's ideas of what's not allowed or not possible in music, and finding ways to get the most freedom from a form. Often we're playing within the structure of a song, So we have certain chord progressions that are going through in time, and we're playing things that are related to those chords in some way, and that's where the music theory comes in. And when I work with my students, I teach them that foundation first so they can feel comfortable understanding the relationship of notes to chords. But then after that, it's just a process of reminding them, okay, you're using a lot of this same rhythm. What about trying all of these rhythms? What about taking inspiration from drummers or percussionists that use a lot of different rhythms? Or I can say you're using a lot of notes that are within the chord. What about including a couple notes outside the chord and bringing it back and finding ways to do that? Or you're using a lot of scale intervals. Why don't we explore wider intervals? And, you know, that process of freeing yourself up and just becoming comfortable with the idea of not knowing what's going to happen, but knowing that there are an infinite number of possibilities. That's kind of the process of learning how to improvise. I think that it's a lifelong goal to be completely open. It's like what people try to understand through a process of meditation or something, how to be open and accepting of a lot of different thoughts and, you know, being able to understand them. So we're kind of playing out that process on the piano in real time. One
So
other
Ben,
thing that
sorry, dear.
it's all right. One other thing that I say real quick is that Wayne, I think it was Wayne Shorter. There are a couple people that have always said that improvisation and composition are two sides of the same coin. You know, improvisation is just composition on the spot. Composition is improvisation slowed down.
Can you do an example for us? Can I give you a melody? You
Yes.
improvise. How about "Ode to Joy"?
Sure. A beautiful melody.
Bravo.
That was
Beautiful.
a fun challenge.
Beautiful.
And probably if I played that 5 more times, you know, I would go in 5 other different directions. You could do something a lot more out of time.
Yeah.
You know, you could change the key.
Yeah.
Take little parts of the melody or change the meter. there are so many
Yeah.
different
Yes.
directions you can go in, and
Right.
as you play around with something, that's why jazz musicians can play the same jazz standard for 40 years and
Uh-huh.
still have
Yeah.
new things to think about when they play it.
Yeah. So, do you have some key, or probably many? Do you have like a two or three main jazz musician you listen to a lot when you
Absolutely.
grow up?
um, Probably my first big inspiration as a jazz pianist was Keith Jarrett. If you want to talk about somebody who is able to go on stage and freely improvise, with no prior knowledge of what he's going to do or no prior melodies, and be able to sell out a concert of 10,000 people to watch him do that,
Wow. Wow.
really incredible musician. And since I started kind of this journey with the idea of free improvisation, that really was something that was so magical to me. As I started learning more about the history of jazz, I understood the people who influenced Keith and who influenced him, people like Bill Evans or Paul Bley, and, maybe more centrally to my playing, people like Duke Ellington, Wynton Kelly, and, some of those really foundational hard bop jazz pianists, Sonny Clark. Mm, so many, really. I mean,
Do
if
you
I
like
start listing,
chicory? Do
I
you
love
like
Chick Corea. Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
in terms of living pianists that are still alive, Chick Corea is really one of the greats. And of course, inspirations extend beyond pianists. People like trumpeter Clifford Brown, John
Mhm.
Coltrane, Charlie Parker,
Right.
really very significant influences for me. But that being said, it's I've listened to so much of their music, but it doesn't necessarily always come out because I listen to so much different music and it all kinds
Mhm.
of blends together. And
Yeah.
through the weird way that I hear it, this is the true with any musician. They have
Right.
so many influences, and eventually all the things they love kind of blend together into something. And even if you just have 5% of you and 95% of inspirations, the
Right.
unique combination of your inspirations, forms a kind of sound that's unique to you.
Yeah. I love Stefan Grappelli.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's amazing. Yeah.
I get to work with a jazz violinist sometimes named
Yeah.
Ben Sutton. Yeah, so it's fun. It's a great instrument in jazz that's doesn't have enough appreciation. Stefan Grappelli is certainly one of my heroes. Django
Yeah.
Reinhardt, all those
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. And, another person is really it's not he's not just a jazz musician. He's like by himself. There's one kind of species is Bobby McFerrin.
Oh yes, I was just talking with somebody about Bobby McFerrin today.
he's he's crazily talented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
So
so many different things.
I would be curious to get your opinion on this,
Yeah.
growing up more in a classical tradition.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I always remind people is that classical music had a very strong lineage of improvisation going back to Bach, one of the great
Right.
improvisers, Mozart, one of the
Right.
great improvisers,
That's
Chopin.
true. Hmm.
When people went to see them perform, most often they were seeing them improvise rather
Hmm.
than, play pieces that were written. So
Yeah.
I'm curious why you feel that our classical music traditions don't put an emphasis on learning about improvisation, even within classical music's history.
Yeah. I I don't know why. I was trained at first in China. Of course, Chinese teachers were trained by Russians.
Mm,
So our system of learning strings. I play the viola. Is very rigorous and very well trained. So definitely improvisation is not the language we ever heard about it. And when I was young, but luckily, I learned Chinese notation. Do you know Chinese notation is number go? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
since the
I've seen it
yeah,
a little bit with erhu
yeah.
players. And,
I hope,
yeah.
yeah. So the number go, I learned the number go also, and also the staff. So, number go actually is a very beneficial for improvisation because
Mm.
if you just give me a note or just don't even tell me what note is that, because I'm not a perfect pitch person, I'm a relative person pitch, but I can pretty much play the same melody in all 12 keys or another minor 12 keys. So just because I learned how to read number go, Chinese number go, it's called jianpu, simplified musical. So in that sense, is a plus for me personally. Classical music, I think how we were trained from historically, I don't know. Maybe just the 20th century or 19th century, 20th century musicians are not trained that way. You know, if you think of Bach time and Baroque time, they gave you chords, right?
Yes,
You can
absolutely.
improvise. It's not, you know, they improvised a long time ago, you know.
Yeah, basso
So
continuo. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But and then the way we were trained, I was trained is pretty much just read the music and play the you know, composition as it's written. It was never really in my whole education I that I can remember that my major teachers, my instrumental teachers would encourage us to improvise, you know, which is a pity, yeah. But
Yeah.
when I was in school, I went to Indiana. We actually had a jazz department. David Baker,
Of
Dave Baker
course.
taught that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, so I don't remember I took the course, but I know there's course you could take, you know. So yeah, so I think it opens improvisation opens a a huge creativity world, right?
Oh, definitely. And I'm seeing more collaborations now between classical and jazz musicians. And, I'm meeting more young string players who have some improvisation background.
Hmm.
And it leads to a lot of super interesting collaborative possibilities. When you
Hmm.
have somebody who has the technique and proficiency of classical music,
Hmm.
mixed with some amount of improvisation training, and then being able to bounce ideas off of a jazz musician, it's led to some pretty interesting things that I've heard recently. So
Yeah, I have a question for you now. You know, classical music compared to pop music or current music, people say it's dying, and then people also say jazz music, you know, is dying. So how do you do what do you do as a musician or as a educator? How do you make jazz make young people to appreciate jazz more, to popularize this art?
yeah, it's a great question. I certainly think that we're seeing a paradigm shift in the way musicians are able to make money. Record sales and royalties and things like that are not as much a part of a stable income of a musician anymore, which is definitely a shame and definitely a shock to some of the older generation that relied on that as a stable income for many years. But with that, I think it's interesting, when you look at record sales, because of that, jazz and classical music are towards the bottom. But you're starting to see some people on more popular mediums like YouTube or Twitch, even, streaming services, who are engaged with classical and jazz music and engaging young people who are interested in them. You definitely see YouTube channels like Two Set Violin, millions of subscribers about classical music.
Yeah.
I mean, and
I
very
love
funny
them.
videos,
I
yeah.
love them.
Or somebody in the jazz world like Adam Neely. I've been
Hmm.
involved with this a little bit with an amazing saxophonist named Patrick Bartley. Uh, before the lockdown, we used to do once a month sessions of jazz arrangements of video game music. So music from Pokemon, Zelda, Mario, all of these things. Again, it's this idea of sharing music that people are familiar with. And a lot of people in my generation grew up playing video games. So the music is forever in their mind. And then hearing somebody improvise on it, you know, for them, it brings back this kind of magic of improvisation. It's like, okay, now I understand that they're playing the song I know, but they're playing these new melodies on it. And I never think that it's dumbing down to bring those kinds of musical influences in. There's a lot of really beautifully composed music in the world of video games, in the world of movies, TV series, you know, anime. There's so many different popular mediums that rely on these really well, you know, they have to have well-written music often because the music repeats over and over throughout. So it has to be melodies that resonate with people. If it's bland, people will forget about it completely and just tune it out.
Right.
So in that sense, you know, it gives us a springboard to be able to talk to people about how a jazz background is relevant to music that they find important to their lives and they find relevant. And it's the same with classical music, you know. There are ways to show that, you know, you can... I think that one thing that turns people off sometimes is this perception of kind of elitism or exclusivity of jazz and classical music. And like you have to be an expert in it in order to appreciate it. And I think the more we break that down and convince people you can appreciate it on a lot of different levels, then people will be willing to get in at the entry level of understanding, just enjoying the music, and then be more inspired to learn more and listen to people like John Coltrane or Duke Ellington, because it's related to something that's already familiar to them. And I always remind people, jazz is a popular music. It's a social music. Some people might say it's a folk music. You know, it was played in small clubs for the people, you know, throughout its history. And if you go back far enough, classical music too. In salons, people were talking and drinking. And, you know, if they applauded enough, people would just replay the movement over again, you know, like an encore on the spot. This is a history that I think that we do a disservice to ignore, because of course there's a appreciation that you can have listening in silence to a symphony, you know, but there's also an appreciation you can have being able to engage with the music in a social setting where you can talk to people about what's happening and, you know, have it be a more interactive kind of community experience. And that's not only how you draw people into the music, but how you build communities where people feel empowered to talk to other people around the love of the music. And then once you build the communities, people find jazz or classical music as something that connects not only to what they're interested in, but also where their friends are and why they're friends, you know, why they've been able to make friends.
Yeah, that's indeed. Tell us a little bit about your CD projects, please.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, one of the reasons I played that piece somewhere is that I have this new CD coming out in the fall, which I'm really excited about. So I have 2 CDs out right now. They're both piano trio and feature some original music, and but they only feature the piano. And this newest project is called Kites and Strings. And, you know, you probably can't read it, but this is all the people who collaborated on it. It's a 6-person group with special guests. And it's a project where I did mostly original music. And I also really got to combine my love of different world music styles, you know, doing some Caribbean influenced pieces or Middle Eastern influenced pieces. I did one of the 3 covers on this. It's a Bulgarian choral piece that I transcribed for the group. And the amazing reeds player on this album, Jasper, he played bass clarinet for the
Do you want to
melody.
play some? Do you want to play on your accordion? Do you have any?
I
um,
could.
how can people get the CD? Is it somewhere we can buy?
Well, it will be available. My first 2 CDs are available on Amazon and also directly from me. You can learn all about them on my website. My 3rd album's coming out in October officially. You know, you can pre-order directly from me, but it'll be available on Amazon, you know, in October. And also the 1st and 3rd albums, you know, the one upcoming will also be available on all the streaming sites like Spotify and Pandora and all of those
Great.
things. So
Yeah. So Ben's website is under the description of here, so you can find out, right?
yes.
We should also add your YouTube channel. You have a nice YouTube channel.
Yes, of course. I should have added that.
Yeah.
I just posted actually some links or some videos on my YouTube channel from concert we did in February with most of the people who are on that album. So some of the music. So you can kind of get an idea of what the album is like before you know, decide to invest in it.
Yeah. I think I heard many of that those tracks. It's wonderful. All right. Could we please hear you a little bit?
Yeah, on you wanted another piece on the accordion, or
please.
All right. Wow. Sounds good. There are, of course, so many different world music styles that I love playing on the accordion. You heard me play. You heard me play. Brazilian piece earlier, but I think one of the important things about deciding to get serious about the accordion is to find ways to integrate it into jazz music as well. You know, because it's an instrument that there have been some really wonderful jazz musicians, but very few, and they didn't get the recognition that they deserved on the accordion. So in that sense, I just, you know, I think people in America especially have a strange association with accordion, you know, from the Lawrence Welk show, or, you know, this idea of accordion as a polka instrument, or, you know, very boxed in. And so I think that it's great to show people that it's an instrument that has a lot of beautiful potential as a jazz instrument as well. So I want to play a jazz standard. I haven't played a jazz standard yet, really, on the accordion. And this one is an old one. It's called Sweet Lorraine.
Okay. Hello. Bravo, bravo. Did anyone tell you like you're like you have an old soul?
People have certainly told me that before. Yes, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think
So
that
it's beautiful.
I think I was maybe a very serious child.
May I ask, are you? Do you have brothers, sisters, or you're only child?
I have an older brother. He's an
Okay.
incredibly brilliant person. He's amazing singer, but he actually primarily now does audio design. Amazing
Wow.
studio engineer as well. He did the mix
Wow.
and master and tracking for all of my albums. But yeah,
Oh, wonderful.
he does speaker design and microphone design and
Wow.
very kind of revolutionary stuff in his field. So he's a pretty
Wow.
brilliant guy.
Wow.
6
Wonderful.
years older than me. So
Oh, okay. Yeah. Bravo. Now I have a announcement to make. Uh, like at the beginning, like I said, I've been doing this for 16 weeks, and today is the 35th episode of live chat with artists, sometimes specialists, sometimes business owners. So I always do on pretty much Monday, Wednesday, 4 p.m. at Eastern time. Um, like say next Monday, I'm gonna talk with Melissa Shea. She's a CEO of Fashion Mingle, who is a Fashion Mingle is like a online fashion service, and very interesting. So I'm gonna talk with her. I worked with her for many seasons to shoot Mercedes fashion show in Lincoln Center and in New York City. And Wednesday on the 15th, I'm gonna feature Jack Chen, Laura Chen, this wife of Jack, and also I'm gonna feature my husband, Ching Juhl, who is a doctor, who is an osteopathic doctor. So we're gonna pick the doctor's brain out, ask about questions about how to make our immune system better, or how to take vitamin, how to prevent to catch the disease, and how to make some of us, our older folks, how to make our second sort of a second, what do you say, second life, more healthy. What else? Then the Monday after that, I'm gonna talk to Turbo. Turbo is actually is my hairdresser for more than 10 years. So I want to pick his brain out, like how this whole COVID, affected business like that. Because he is the owner of a color bar. It's a hair salon in Manhattan. They have 3 locations. Can you imagine 3 locations shutting down for 3
wow.
months?
Yeah.
That's like that. Ouch.
Of course.
So yeah. And then the Wednesday of the July 22, I'm talking with another composer, Kyle Gann, Gann, talk about his music. So I love featuring artists. I love featuring people who has a voice and who has things to share. Or yeah, I actually offered to talk to the owner of a Barcelona, the Italian
Yeah.
restaurant. Yeah. So he's interested in talking to me. So I wanted to
Nice.
find out how he did. So tell me about your situation during COVID-19. Like, are you suffering um, or but I know one thing is you've been doing like 15 weeks of Facebook playing on Sundays. So you're
Yeah.
being productive.
Well, yeah, and I mean, first of all, that sounds like an amazing lineup of talks. So I'll definitely be tuning in for some of that. I the COVID crisis has definitely hit the arts world very hard. not only musicians, who many of whom make their living almost entirely on live performance, but also venues that have had to, close down operations for a number of months now and don't have the reserves that they need in order to stay open without funding. I've contributed to some GoFundMe, programs of some venues that I really love, like a place called Merriman's Playhouse in Indiana, Rudy's Jazz Room in Nashville, the 1905 in Portland. Often these are the only major jazz clubs in the area, and it would be a real crime if they went under. And also in New York, Smalls has now a non-for-profit called Smalls Live that people have been contributing to. It's one of the major jazz clubs in the city, and he has 2 locations in the West Village, so the rent of that adding up over 3 months is really hard. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely hit us, and of course individual musicians have been hit hard. I'm very lucky that I not only have some students that I've been able to teach virtually throughout this, but also I work with an organization called Concerts in Motion that does concerts for housebound recipients and senior centers, and they have transitioned their concerts to virtual. So I've been doing a lot of work for them since the lockdown started, and so I've been able to continue to have outlets to perform. And then of course also, every Sunday for the last 15 weeks, I've been doing this live stream series on my Facebook page, which has been so rewarding for me, not only to have outlet to perform for people and still connect with people, but just to feel like we can still have a music community and my fans can talk to each other virtually. And almost all the people who have tuned in are people who are friends with me on Facebook and longtime fans who I've known. So it's been a really wonderful thing to get to connect with them every week. And I know that there's been a lot of uncertainty for everyone these past months. So, to be able to share some music and alleviate some of that stress for an hour and a half every week is definitely something that has been really important for me. So I've been staying busy. As I mentioned to you before we started talking, I've been contributing to musical causes. I highly encourage anyone who has a local club or venue that they support. They probably need the help right now. I've done a couple of concerts specifically to help raise funds for some of the venues in New York and around the US. And also a lot of these artist relief funds from places like the NEA or have really been able to help out with musicians who make their primary living from performing. They've been able to apply for some artist grants and been able to stay in New York City, So yeah, it's definitely been hard. There's definitely a lot of uncertainty. It's quite possible that live performing won't return in full force until 2021. Though some venues have been doing outdoor music recently. On our block every Sunday, the Craftsman has a jazz night now outdoors run by some friends of mine. So that's been really fun, and it's great to see musicians working again. But it's definitely a scary time. I'm planning my next tour for February 2021, and even right now I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I'll be safe to tour by then. So
wow, that's wonderful. So audience, thank you so much for being with us. And check out Ben's website. Check out Ben's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel. Please subscribe our YouTube, his YouTube channel, and my YouTube channel. And should we do a rapid fire before we end? Okay. All right. Rapid fire is like a fast question, fast answer. Just kind of fun thing. Okay. All right. Favorite color?
Favorite color is blue.
favorite genre of food?
Oh God, I could talk for so long about food, but to keep it simple, I'll say the favorite food I've had is when I was in Japan. Unbelievable food.
Okay. No. Um, when you go to Chinese restaurant, especially Sichuan restaurant, they have very spicy or not too spicy or non-spicy. What would you like? Are you a spicy person?
I usually ask for the spicy, and
Okay.
my experience has been that usually they'll ask me, "Are you sure you want that? Do you really want?" But I always go for it. I actually got to travel to Beijing to perform a couple
Oh
times,
yeah.
or not once, but
Awesome.
for a week, and yeah,
Awesome. Wow.
so yeah.
Wow. Besides jazz, who are your favorite composers?
Okay. I've been listening to a lot of classical music recently. Definitely the Strauss, Bruckner, Mahler area of things is wonderful for
Romantic. Yeah.
me. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, also Bach. I mean, Bach
Yeah.
is my favorite. It doesn't even need to be said. But but in terms of my other favorite composers, I listen to a lot of folk music and a lot of world music. So you know, somebody like Chico Buarque, who's a Brazilian composer, is somebody I've been listening to a lot. Incredible lyrics as well. So I've been learning Portuguese, so it's good to read through
Oh,
song
wonderful.
lyrics.
Wonderful. So you have visited many cities. Cities you want to revisit.
Cities I want to revisit. In the U.S., New York is my favorite, but I can't imagine living anywhere but New York. But in terms of, I really love Minneapolis. I really love San Francisco, Portland, Oregon. I love Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina. Cities I really enjoyed. A lot of great cities. Internationally, Montreal is one of my favorites. I've been there a few times, but I would always go back. I love Tokyo. I love Kyoto. Kyoto, I've spent only a little bit of time in, so I would love to go back there. And one of my favorite cities that I got to spend some time in recently was Rijeka. Rijeka is in Croatia. And I did a little self-imposed composition retreat at my friend's house, and who's from Croatia. And, I find that city really inspiring. I love cities on the coast, and, I find them beautiful.
Yeah, I heard Croatia is beautiful. Instrument you already know, piano and what do you call accordion. If you had time to learn another one, which instrument you want to play well?
Yeah, I would say drum set, definitely. I mean, there's so many instruments that are gorgeous. I would learn all of them if I had time. But I'd say drum set, just to really get deep into feeling rhythms over each other and understand what it's like from drummer's perspective. I would love that. And also maybe a more unusual choice is Willen pipe, like the bagpipe that you hold under your elbow. Is
I
really
see.
beautiful. I love instruments that can do inflections really well.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Now, which are the three people you would like to have lunch with, dead or alive?
Oh man. Oh, that's a serious question. you know,
Serious.
I would love to talk to Bach about music. Oh my God, it would be so incredible. I would love to talk to someone like Duke Ellington, in the early years of jazz, just about arranging and about the music and, the social aspect of the music as well, and especially in the early years. And a third one, such a good question. I'm always interested in people that are complex personalities, and anybody who's really skilled at what they do, really in anything, whether it's music or art or, food or, even playing a sport or a video game well. It's just like somebody who's spent so many hours. Maybe I would want to talk to one of my favorite writers, maybe somebody like William Faulkner or not Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald or Hemingway, Okay, that's off the top of my head.
Thank you. Okay. Grilled chicken, beef, or vegetable? Which one do you pick? Chicken, beef, or veggie?
Chicken, beef, or veggie? Oh, it's changing. It's changing.
Okay.
I would have told you beef for a long time, but I'm starting to eat more vegetables more.
Oh, okay.
When I spent a little bit of time at the beginning of the lockdown living back with my parents, so I wasn't going to be alone in my apartment for 3 months, not able to go out. And so my dad is vegetarian, so we ate all vegetarian. And, doing that for a few months, it made me realize that it's something I could do. That being said, if I go to another country, like I'm always gonna have meat because it's so much part of the culture and so many of the places I love going.
Right.
So it's I'm trying to, when I cook at least, cook mostly vegetarian. So
okay, I should have you over for hot pot.
I would love that.
Yeah, we have hot pot.
Is my favorite.
Winter time. Yeah. So last question: coffee or tea?
Tea. Yeah, which is unusual in the jazz world. Most jazz musicians are coffee people. I've never drank coffee. Yeah, I just only have tea.
Interesting. Wow. So I want to take you to Mac's Cafe to have tea, coffee, or drink sometime. Do you drink? Do you drink wine?
I do not drink. No.
Oh, okay. Then we'll drink tea.
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Also somewhat unusual in the jazz world because jazz musicians play a lot of gigs where there's an open bar. So they drink and they smoke. Yeah, but somehow I found myself in the jazz world, but just as a clean person.
You're very disciplined. You're disciplined.
Maybe.
So
I eat a lot of sugar. That's my vice.
Oh, but you're so skinny. Yeah. So it doesn't affect you. So I think the time is up. And would you like to just end with a 2 minutes music for us, or how do you feel?
Sure. Maybe I'll play one more original composition to end it out.
Yeah. Okay.
And let's see. I need to think about which composition I would want to play.
I want to thank our audience. We have some people stuck with us all this an hour and a half, and thank you for being there for us. Yes. We still have audience. Yeah.
All right, so I'll play you a composition that's from my upcoming record. This one
Great.
I wrote for bigger group, sextet, but I'll try to do a solo version of it. It's called Halfway to Wonderland.
Thank you.
I've played a lot of things in 3 today, but that's all right.
Bravo.
Thank you so much.
So I
Skipping
have
all
one more.
over. Yes.
I have one more question for you. Do you practice every single day?
If any of my students are watching, yes, absolutely. In all seriousness, when I'm on the road, it's a lot harder. If I'm touring and we have to drive places and we have shows every night, it's a lot harder to practice every day. But when I'm at home, I definitely try to practice every day as much as I can that I still feel is productive. And I also think that listening to music is very important. So even if I can't get to the piano every day or the accordion, just to be able to listen to music deeply and think about it and keep exposing your ear and your brain to new sounds, very important.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Ben. It's been such a pleasure, and you
Oh, thank
are
you.
my you are my you are my new inspiration because I just discovered you a few days ago. Sorry, hold on. My
That's all
son
right.
keeps calling me. Sorry. So yeah, and thank you so much for talking with me. Oh gosh. Hold on.
That's fine.
He must be he must in some kind of emergency right now. So
Uh-oh.
yeah, thank you so much, and I'm sure we can talk forever, and
Absolutely.
yeah, let's do it
So,
again.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
let's do it again.
When we get
Yeah.
tea at Max Cafe, I'll get to hear more about what you do as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, take care, and I'll see you hopefully in the gardens, and you stay safe, and and let me know all your great progress in music
I
making and
appreciate that.
performance. Yeah, I love to come to your concerts, live concerts.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Once
Yeah.
I'll return to live performance, I'll definitely invite you. And thank you so much for having me again. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you. All right. Good night.
Good night. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, everybody.